Good afternoon, everybody. It's about 3:15 on the 15th of August 2025. Show you around the area here. I've been here before. That's a old style Soviet hotel where they used to put up people, that are visiting from other Soviet republics. I don't think it was for really foreign dignitaries from Europe, but mostly from Soviet republics. I think just your regular old people. And I am at Partizansky Mall, one of the old malls in Minsk, Belarus. A nice place to have a beer over there. So these are like office buildings to the most part in there. I know there's offices in this one and in that one over there. Anyway, I'm not going to be doing too much walking because I strained a muscle in my left calf here, jogging. I don't know, seems to always be in my left calf. I'm going to be sitting down here. Look at this. And you're not at the Louvre, but you got a little pyramid here. Louvre in Paris. Advertisement for wild berries. That's like sort of like Amazon for Russia. They have it in Belarus, obviously, too. The one in Belarus is called 21st Vek, 21st century. Anyway, maybe I shouldn't go too far that way. Maybe get a little bit too loud. It's kind of quiet here. A guy with a bad calf can sit here and go through some news. Okay, being the 15th of August, as you all know, this is the big day, the big meeting. Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump in Alaska. I always wondered, if Mississippi bought a New Jersey, what would Delaware? I don't know. Alaska. Man, I gotta face the other direction. You guys can't see me otherwise. I'm a silhouette. Okay. I wanted to first say a little bit of something else, not anything related to that coming up meeting. There's not that much to say. I mean, you have to wait until after the meeting before even Donald Trump says that, before you find out what the big deal is about that meeting. But anyway, I finally watched a video. It's like 3 weeks old from who's known as the Irish Partisan, and he was a guy that started making videos here in Belarus, mostly travel videos, pretty much always travel sort of things. Maybe some news about Belarus, like a lot of time during the coronavirus thing when everything was still open here. They never shut anybody down, didn't lock anybody up. People partying all over on the streets. We're not worse for wear from it. Oh, you better stay locked inside. Well, they did have, I think, first this 2-meter distancing and masks and all that for a very short period of time. And then, of course, Lukashenko got rid of that. When I first came over here, they had already gotten rid of the mask back in December. Actually, you could say they got rid of the mask in November of 2021. And I was here in December 2021, and there were no social distancing, no masks, none of that kind of stuff. And of course, nobody's forced to get shots. I think they were forcing some people at the very beginning, like nurses, I think. Maybe, well, I don't know, maybe you get suspended if you didn't take a shot. And they probably lifted that right away. It's not like in some countries where if you didn't get a shot, you lost your job and you never got your job back. I think like St. Vincent and the Grenadines, where I was at, they fired a lot of the teachers, and then they hired a whole bunch of teachers from the ruling political party, and I think people are still trying to get their jobs back. I think also the same with doctors and maybe teachers. Yeah, teachers, nurses, doctors, that sort of thing. Anyway, people went crazy over this stuff, and some of them still are. They still think you should go out, even though it's been proven definitely, positively, that it didn't do you any good. As a matter of fact, you probably were more susceptible, I think that's even true, to get the virus when you got the shot. I don't know. I'm not going to venture into any of that sort of stuff because YouTube has already decided they're going to go after me. Anyway, this is a lot about YouTube right now, what I'm going to be saying. Anyway, the Irish Partisan, he had been demonetized. I think he said in the spring of like a year and a half ago, and part of that has to do with the sanctions against Belarus, in 2022, from the special military operation, even though Belarus isn't there and killing anybody. They decided, since they're not enemies with Russia, that they're going to have to pay the price as well. So I watched his, I guess it was maybe his first video away from Belarus. He was in Ireland, I believe, at the time. And he's going to be, I guess his job was made redundant as well not that long ago. So he had to leave. Didn't have to, but I mean, if you want to get food and eat, since they demonetized him on YouTube, and he lost his job, so to speak, apparently. So he's got himself another job in some Eastern European country. If you guys are familiar with the Irish Partisan, you can look him up under Irish Partisan on YouTube. But what I want to mention about his video is that he mentioned some of the things that I have said about those of us expats making videos, expatriates, you know, English-speaking people, I assume, maybe all people, making videos in Belarus. And there's people that were doing it, they were Belarusian, they were making them in English. I think her name is Anfisa, and I think she has also gone out. It's mostly because Google is in big-time attack against people in Belarus. I hadn't noticed that with my channel. So, you know, you guys know about some of the things they do to me. Like, they take 20 hours to upload a video, a 1 hour, 40-minute video, and you know, sometimes it goes fast. And I noticed with shorts lately, I was doing shorts and I had huge amount of views. I think in 1 week I had 4,700 views on one, and bam, it stopped completely. All the other ones, they all stopped. I was sitting there every day getting 100 views, 200, 300 views, and then maybe more. And then they stopped it completely, and all of a sudden I get no more new views at all on any of my shorts. I don't know, maybe there's something else to explain that, but I kind of wonder if it has to do with Google. I'm just guessing, but I'm not positive, like I say. But other things, like I remember I had sometimes like 64 views, and the next time I look I have 52 views or something. So people unsee my videos, they take away views, and then people have been telling me, you know, they try to push the like button and YouTube does not accept it. Comments are deleted and all sorts of things. And I don't know about with me, but the Irish Partisan said that people that are subscribed and even you know, put the notification bells on there, they still don't get notifications whenever he puts up a new video. You know, obviously they're doing so much to try to suppress anybody that has any views here in Belarus. So I don't know if it's going to get something like, what is it called, the Streisand effect or whatever. But they suppress the views, and I guess it looks like YouTube can do that. They can take your views away from you, because who's to say, well, what's my view? My view is number 87, and I don't know. It's not, there's no way you can tell. So, but yes, anyway, so they suppress people. He was demonetized. I guess it was because of the sanctions. I think that's what he said. It wasn't anything he said. You know, and I'm not monetized anyway, but I get taken down many times. I've seen people that put up things on YouTube, the same thing that I say, and when I say it, I get taken down. I get strikes and things. Sometimes I had one time I was taken down, and like too many strikes, and I'm thinking, I didn't get any strikes. You never told me of any strikes, so why did you take me down? But that's how they operate, I guess. I guess I'm finding out more and more because of other people that do videos here in Belarus that they go after people that are doing YouTube videos from Belarus. Everybody knows about that now. Everybody's talking about that in Belarus. A lot of content creators. Google, YouTube, they go after people that do videos in Belarus. They'll probably say, oh no, we want you to do, you know, it's the same sort of deal. It's like Ukraine wants peace, you know. Okay. What else? I said about the strikes already. Yeah, and also the Irish Partisan said on this video, since he's out of Belarus now, but he's still doing YouTube videos, but so YouTube can still go after him. But he said that Google was unsubscribing people that subscribed to his channel, and he was saying he was losing like every video he was losing 20 subscribers. So he was losing subscribers right and left. And it's the strange thing about me, it's like there are people obviously that don't watch the videos, but they don't unsubscribe. It's like I get subscribers and it pretty much stays there. So they haven't done that tactic on me yet. Sure, I was getting some people unsubscribing, but you know, I kind of was watching that and say, well, you know, a couple of people, it's when a lot of people you get a flurry of subscriptions. Maybe you get 5, 10 people or something, and then all of a sudden 4 of them will drop, or 5, something like that, you know. But I guess that's explainable. But he was getting longtime subscribers of 20 people dropping every video, or even more. Wow. And with mine also, like I think I said, some people's messages don't get posted, and yeah. Let's see, I mentioned some of the things that, well, he was mentioning other YouTube subscribers, content creators that I don't know about, because I don't really know him. I only, get message from him sometimes, thanks for a shout out and all that, and I make messages on his channel, but other people have told him, I guess, that they get, that do content in Belarus, they get targeted by YouTube for some odd reason. I don't know. Yeah, 20 subscribers every video. Yeah, I said that. Okay. So, now let's get to this thing in Alaska a little bit. I jump around a little bit, as you all know. No matter what's agreed upon between Putin and Trump in Alaska concerning Ukraine, any end of the hostilities, and of course, a lot of this obviously has to go through Ukraine. If they don't want to comply, they won't comply, but a lot of times they get a lot of their taken away from them if the United States takes it away. And I guess for the moment, the European countries have, gosh, I wish I can get up and walk. My leg's so sore. But the European countries are footing a lot of the bill. They're stealing the money from the European taxpayers and sending it to Ukraine, and sending weapons and doing all that kind of stuff. And I guess they've had a lot of joint projects. I talked a little bit more about one with the British, but the Germans were working on one and helping him out with some long-range missiles, instead at that time of sending the Taurus. I forgot the name of it last video. And Britain is sending the Storm Shadows, and whatever that version is of the Storm Shadow from France, they're sending it. U.S. is sending some long range too, but they're not sending they're sending ATACMS and a few others, but I think they have some other ones that are even worse, but they're not sending those. Maybe on the same lines as the Taurus from Germany. But let's see here. But the UK has been helping them many. I have something toward the very end of this video about those the Sabotage spies, that the British military spies that the Russians caught. Really big stuff. Even the Russians are hush-hush about it for some odd reason, but it's coming out in other places. The Russians have mentioned it, but very, very conservatively. But I'll get to that at the very end of the video. So you have to stay and wait. By the way, subscribe and push the like button. Push the like button anyway. Right now. Do it now. And anyway, even if you're not subscribed, push the like button. So let's keep going. So as we all know, the people who watch this channel, and you're watching other channels, you watch Scott Ritter or I'm so many people, and I forget to mention a lot of them. I mention Larry Johnson all the time, or Jimmy Dore, and there's the Duran, and there's Jackson Hinkle, and many, many more. Rick Sanchez on RT, things like that. We all know that this is actually a proxy war, and from the main part, through the U.S., but the U.S. is very, very, gratefully, they are distancing themselves from it, and Ukraine is collapsing more and more. But the United States still supplies intelligence, and the CIA is still working there. They're sending, I think, a lot less weapons and money. I guess that's through the Trump thing, I guess, what he has control of. And the CIA, not even Tulsi Gabbard has control over them. There's the deep state that runs a lot of the CIA. I think she might have made some big changes, but maybe she's still got a lot more to do. Kash Patel says he's still got a lot of work to do with the FBI. So they're still, for the most part, run by the deep state, and he's trying to get control of that, apparently. He's got some control already. So let's see, but, well, I'm talking about that stuff already. But even if the U.S. gets the UK and the EU to stop support, and the U.S. stops sending bombs and, systems like HIMARS. Matter of fact, the United States has arranged to send HIMARS and things like that, and like Patriots and all that lately even. It's not like it used to be under the Biden days, but they're still getting some support from the United States. I guess there's a graph out, and I guess they've kind of flatlined. They're still sending a lot of things, but it's flatlined what they're sending to Ukraine. So it's still very high, but now the European Union sends more to Ukraine than the United States, apparently. I guess it's for the first time just started going that way. Let's see, intel sharing. There is another element, and to me it's very important, and I know that Scott Ritter, I guess, talks about it. Some other people do on various occasions, but a lot of people have to keep on talking about this because it's very important. But it's the amount of brainwashing, and what you can't necessarily undo is all of the brainwashing. And a lot of these people in Ukraine, it's very much like in a lot of places, and in a sense, and even though you guys in the United States don't even realize it, you've been brainwashed your entire lifetime as well. I was as well. I pledge allegiance to the flag, and one nation under God, indivisible, and all this sort of stuff. A lot of countries all have that, to try to induce patriotism and things like that. And we have a lot of lies. George, I told you about that last time, and we've never been defeated in a war and all that sort of thing. We won World War I, we won World War II, all that sort of thing. And actually, I was talking about World War II, and it's obvious that the Soviet Union defeated the Nazis, not the United States, not in any way, shape, or form. And as far as World War I, it actually came to an end. Who beat Germany? Germany beat Germany. And you got to look that one up. And like I said, I mentioned that it's called the stab in the back. And the military was like, what the heck? Why did we retire? Why did we surrender? We're sitting here on French territory. Even though there wasn't that much gains, but the Germans actually started to gain more and more as time went by. And then the last year that was like that. And they had like faulty strategies. Attack the enemy at the strongest point, because if you can defeat them at the strongest point, you can defeat them anywhere. And towards the end of World War I, the French and the Germans started, even the Germans, French and the Germans, the British, they started realizing, hey, why don't we attack the enemy at the weakest point, then we can make some ground. And of course, that's how everything went now. But General Pershing of the United States, it's who they named the Pershing missile after, which is not a bad missile, really. But anyway, he still insisted on attacking the enemy at the strongest point. That's why the United States lost far too many soldiers than they should have lost, even though they were in the war for a very short period of time. And it probably helped quite a bit that the United States was in the war, because it had the Germans more to occupy things, and Germany was having a financial problem, behind the lines. And people were getting pissed off and things like that. So that's what actually ended the war. It wasn't that the Germans were defeated in the battlefield. So anyway, that's enough of that. So let's see. But anyway, these Ukrainians, they have been heavily brainwashed for every cell in their body to hate Russians, to hate it with every cell. And it's not like they get up in the morning and hate. Zelensky does that. And Zelensky, he wasn't even brainwashed. As you saw, at the beginning, when he was first elected, he was thinking, well, maybe we should make friends with him. But apparently, he was selected for this, and a lot of people talk about it. He was selected to go after the Russians, and they chose him years before the election that he was going to run and become the president. So he was groomed by the super rich, and they supported the Azovs, even though they were Jewish, and the Azovs hate the Jewish. They supported the Azovs, which is very strange. They're the ones that financed the Azovs, Kolomoisky and others. Oh, I hurt my calf. I wanted to get up here and look at some of these flowers here for you guys. Okay. Tiptoe through the flowers. Okay, but anyway, it's this brainwashing, and how are you going to get around that? How are you gonna jump down here, make sure I don't hurt my leg. How are you going to change that? It's going to be quite difficult, and I don't think Russia is planning on thinking they're going to change it. But as you know, what Putin had put out, I guess it was just yesterday, what he is proposing is that Russia, even though they have taken all of Lugansk, and they've taken most of Donbass. There's only a little bit left of that. I think Kherson, there's a good chunk of Kherson they didn't take. And what's the other one? One of those other two, Kherson and Zaporozhye. Maybe it was Zaporozhye. But anyway, they didn't take all of those. That's a little bit of a different story than the Donbass. And I'm not sure exactly how patriotically Russian those people are in Kherson and Zaporozhye, but of course they are in the Donbass. And but Russia says that as soon as Ukraine withdraws from those areas, that Russia will cease fire immediately, and basically that will be the end of it all. And of course Ukraine has to agree, like Russia has been saying from the very beginning, before the first day of the special military operation. They're trying to get rid of Nazism, and they want them to be, I think for the most part, disarmed. They have to give up their desire to be in NATO. And normally it doesn't matter to Russia if Ukraine joins the EU. But as you see what is going on now with Ursula von der Leyen and all this, they are making the EU and NATO synonymous as being the same entity. So that's going to be a little bit more tricky now, and of course they're doing that on purpose. And they say that they're going to continue backing Ukraine, but I tell you what, if the United States backs out, they stop the intelligence, giving them intelligence, satellite data and all that, it's going to be much weaker. And then of course there's also logistics. The United States still supplies a lot of the logistics for these weapons and things coming there. And I think Russia has just recently destroyed some huge amounts of weaponry from coming into Ukraine before it even got to Ukraine, near the port of Odessa and all that. And they've made some really big victories. So it's really dire right now for Ukraine. And I don't know, but I'm not going to go into that sort of stuff. There's so many other people talking about it. But there's other things here. But it's mostly the West that has fanned the flames of this Banderite ideology, and of course used it to get these people to hate Russia. They created what is called an anti-Russia. So Ukraine is anti-Russia, and that was the whole idea. And it should be no surprise to any of you that even if there is a ceasefire, even if there is a peace agreement, that it's never going to stop. They are going to continue doing this. This is going to go on for a long, long time. This might even be going on 100 years from now. It has already gone on for hundreds of years. The West, mostly Europe, in the guise of Europe, and most of the time, the Holy Roman Empire, as I have mentioned it before, because that was a large part of my studies in history, was the Holy Roman Empire and the great Elector of Brandenburg and the Teutonic Knights and all of this stuff. Not from the Russian side, unfortunately, but I was only getting one side, like the German, maybe American type of side. And yeah, they want to make, they've always been making war on Russia for hundreds of years. I mean, you can go to the Crimea War, you can go the Ottoman Empire making even war against Russia and the United States. And even when I was in the military in the 1980s, the whole dream was to defeat Russia. That was it. That's the goal. Defeat Russia, defeat Russia, defeat Russia. And it still is to this very day. Listen to Lindsey Graham. So do you think it's just going to stop, from this meeting with Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin, or even a second meeting, as Donald Trump is saying? It's not going to stop. This is going to go on for a long, long time. If you don't believe that, I have a nice park setting in front of a shopping mall to sell you. In front of I'll tell you what, I have the Paris pyramid in front of the Louvre right here in front of you, and I'll sell it to you. So, okay. But anyway, if you go look in the history of Bandera, he was originally out against Jews, and he was out against communists, and he was against anything that Adolf Hitler didn't like, for the most part. And now, and obviously, he's from the same family of ethnicity as the Russians are. And it wasn't against Russians; it was against communism. But now they have morphed it since he's gone and dead. He was protected very well by the Germans, and given a beautiful gravestone, and they honored him very much. I don't know, the whole West did, because the British were using him, the Americans were using him, and even the Germans, even though they were against each other, but they still used it. After the war, the United States used offshoots from Bandera. He had a couple people that were, like, say, lieutenants. The British used Bandera directly, and I think maybe the Germans were, to a certain extent, of what they were allowed to use, also after the war, so he was still big after that. And even during the war, he was in a luxury prison cell, and he was still running his spy and sabotage network. So he was allowed to do that. So the Germans let him do that, I guess, but they just locked him up. They feared Ukrainian Nazism. What is it, the OAU or whatever, the Organization of something Ukraine or whatever? And he was actually more influential than old Adolf was, so that's why I think they were scared of him. And he was actually hoping for Ukrainian statehood, but he worshipped Adolf Hitler. I mean, that's just stuff you guys probably already know. That's not part of this video here, but let's get into another part. Cyber war on Russia. Not enough people are talking about that. That is a big topic. Let's see here. We hear only accusations that Russia is hacking. Russia hacked the elections. I mean, now that's been proven that that's a big fake. It's the Russia hoax. You know, so, but it's like you've already been conditioned in your mind. Oh, the Russian hackers and all this stuff. And you know, it's like the emotion stays, but even though the knowledge that Russia was hacking is not true, and you know that it's not true, but your emotions still, you know, feel the same way. I don't know if you can take that away. That's a strange thing. That's the human psyche. Okay. So the reality is that after 2014 it started slowly, and then I think by 2017, and you know, but obviously right after the Maidan, NATO was working and invested heavily in cyber warfare, and they were making Ukraine a big warfare hub in Ukraine, really big time. They were training people. A lot of them went to London and got specialized training, and yeah. Anyway, but here in the Union State, Russia, Belarus, we are hearing more and more about Ukrainians using fraud over telephone. And I'll mention it right now. I was going to mention this a little bit afterwards, but you really should. And if you don't know what you're going to do this evening, you should watch that movie Beekeeper with Jason Statham. I think there's two of them, but look at number one. That's the only one I'm familiar with, and it talks like about these call centers, and they are big, using them against Russia and Belarus, but they are using them in other places too. They're even, you know, I'll get into that a little bit. Hang on here. But anyway, that's around like maybe 2017, and the British were helping them out. So we hear about it using the fraud by telephones, computers. They steal the money in your bank account, your life savings, you know, innocent people. And they've stole billions. That's a big number, billions. When you heard about Joe Biden every 3 or 4 months, I think it was 3 months or 4 months, giving Ukraine $325 or $350 million. This industry is much bigger for Ukraine, and they probably get at least that much every quarter from fraud, cyber fraud, than they did from Joe Biden giving his $350 million every quarter. And maybe that's why Zelensky didn't act as grateful as he should have been, because that's not really that big of money for Zelensky. When you start really hearing about the money that this guy was raking in, besides the money that the United States was sending him, you know, you will blush. It's incredible. But let's see. They have, for example, if you ride on the metro and the buses here in Belarus, normally, if it's more than, I don't know, 10 or 15 minutes, they always have announcements on here and they tell you to beware of all this fraud and stuff, people calling you on the telephone. and get your money and stuff. And I've known people that they do call, and it's normally Ukrainians. Ukrainians do this, and they figure out ways. And it's not like you even have to give them your bank account number. They have other ways to do stuff. And I'm not exactly sure myself, because I'm not into that. But I don't do any online banking. I would advise that you just don't do it. If you possibly can, just go to the bank. I mean, even in the United States, I'm not giving this just for people over here. I'm giving this for everybody, because this is getting bigger and bigger. And it's a good thing that they made that movie Beekeeper, and they exposed all this sort of stuff. And it's kind of shocking. And they have people there, and they're just stealing millions and millions and millions from people, innocent people, old people, their entire retirements, your life savings, gone. People have tried to do that with me, I noticed before, but I mean, everybody's had the Nigerian prince call you and say that, oh, that's good. He's got a bunch of money in a bank account, and he needs a place to send it, and all that, and oh, I swear it's true, and all those kind of things like that. I've had to, I don't know if they were from Nigeria or whatever, but you get them all the time. Or invest in, what is it, cyber, what's it, cyber money, what's like, I don't know, like cryptocurrencies. Yeah. But what you don't know is a lot of this fraud and these things that are going on, and this is going to be a little bit more shocking. This is done. This is, if you watch The Beekeeper, will even say this. It'll even hint at this. It is done with United States and British and foreign intelligence agencies. Israel's involved in it. The United States is involved in it, and so is the Great Britain. They're involved in helping Ukraine steal money, even from their own countries. Can you imagine that? Even from their own countries. I'll tell you what, a lot of people are getting defrauded in Israel by Ukrainians, and Israel helps the Ukrainians set this stuff all up. It makes you, and it's like the government doesn't care. It's not their money, as long as it stays secret or something like that. Because if they're exposed in the government, just like in The Beekeeper, you see, it goes up to the very highest people. Yeah, very interesting stuff. Watch The Beekeeper. I'll tell you what, it's not even far-fetched. So, okay, what else? They called this, the West calls this, I guess it's an agency or operation, the NATO Trust Fund Ukraine. It's called C4. They even give a name for this, of stealing people's money. They have a name for this called C4. It's called Command, Control, Communications, and Computers. Like the explosive C4. So, and that's what it's called with, maybe it's all these intelligence agencies. NATO knows about this, so maybe everybody that's in NATO, I don't know, maybe most of these NATO countries are involved in helping Ukraine steal the money from their own people even. Wow. But anyway, that agency, it does more than just stealing the money, like through telephone calls and your, computer and everything else, contacting you and saying, you have a virus, like in The Beekeeper. Oh, you have to do this to rectify it. I've even gotten those. I don't even remember how I got out of it, but I think a lot of time it's a virus. It is a virus, and they shut your computer down unless you send them the money. Wow. And in 2022, Western tech giants, get this one. We were just talking about Google and YouTube. In 2022, Western tech giants such as Google, is just an example, I'll name some more in a minute here. They got also involved in a lot of this stuff. Google deployed, it's called Global Cache Nodes for Geospatial plus Technical Recon. I don't really understand what that means, but that's the name of the program, or what they did, how they initiated helping this sort of thing here. And one thing is it monitors Belarus and YouTube and Russia, of course, the internet, and it seeks to make disruptions. And they even try to disrupt cultural events. There was even some that they mentioned in this, and they were heavily trying to attack this. I don't even remember what it is, but it was just a month or so ago. And that was, I don't know if it was just Google or a lot of these other companies that I'll just mention in a minute that were all trying to hack this thing and disrupt it big time. That was a disruption operation there. But it's like Google, Microsoft, Apple, Amazon, and others. There's quite a few others, lots of others, They provide infrastructure, and it helps them or people to avoid IP blocking, as well as hosting malicious software. Obviously, they help by hosting malicious software. Wow. And distribute attack instructions. I know they do that to groups because they have these meetings, like in Kazakhstan. They had them in Belarus here, but luckily Lukashenko got rid of them. And I was thinking most all these things were run through Voice of America and Radio Free Europe and Radio Liberty and things like that. These organizations that I guess are still operating, believe it or not. But I think somebody else now pays for them. I don't think it's coming from the American taxpayers. Maybe they're even some are attached to the U.S. State Department instead of the CIA. CIA started those, by the way. Okay, and it's claimed that Ukraine uses, it's called the Digital Legion. And this is kind of hard to believe, but they say it's approximately 300,000 hackers. And it is really, 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 really huge in Ukraine. It is beyond your imagination. Even if some of these numbers, you won't believe it. But a lot of these people are like trained, and Israel trained these people. They train them when they leave the IDF, and they have like these huge rooms and organizations of former Israeli soldiers, and they just go around on the internet and they try to change information and things like that. But these 300,000 hackers, I don't know, that's a large number. And maybe they're taking a lot of them that actually can walk and maybe lift up a gun, and they're probably throwing them to the front. Digital Legion. And most of them are in Ukraine and Ukrainian locations, but they do have them all over other borders, around the borders of the Union State. A lot of them in Estonia, apparently. But Estonia doesn't border Belarus, but I guess that's the major one of their the Eastern European ones is Estonia, but that's mostly all to attack Russia, using the cyber network. And this is, by the way, this is not just some Russian putting this out. This is all according to the Ukrainian digital minister. His name is Fedorov. He admitted all of this stuff. Wow. Quite a few of these attacks are done from Germany, so Germany's involved in this as well, and probably at the governmental level, not just private people. Also through the U.S., through a company called Digital Ocean, AWS, probably a front organization for CIA. There's also the collaboration with Israel's Unit 8200, Matrix Limited is another one. Checkpoint Software Technologies and Convertrix. Those are the Israeli companies that are involved in this. Ukraine hosts over 1,000 scam call centers. 1,000 centers. And they said allegedly there's 100,000 employees at those call centers, just in Ukraine. These scam call centers are one of the biggest earners in Ukraine, if not the most. They get possibly the most money that comes into Ukraine is not necessarily even through our organ harvesting. They steal organs, child trafficking, drug trafficking, and weapon trafficking. Maybe even not even from getting all this money from the European Union and all that. I think that one of the biggest ones, so this is going to be here to stay, are these scam call centers. So these things are going to keep on going. They're going to it's probably going to expand. They probably even do it in Ukraine, I can even imagine. Yes. Like I said, it's also even against Israel. I have a request that you watch that movie. So, anyway. That's how Ukraine is the beacon of democracy. Yeah, you guys are watching. Most of the topics that I cover is mostly a lot of these humanitarian sort of things, the cheating and the things like what mostly that concerns Israel and Ukraine, first and foremost. Injustice. So those are the two countries that have, well, the leadership there, has no borders, I guess. Okay. Apparently there is, one major reason why Trump wanted this meeting with Putin so unexpectedly is not only to distract away from the Epstein cover-up, but also to draw attention away from Israel's slaughter of Gazans. So because, as you all know, Donald Trump is heavily involved in that. He doesn't lift one little pinky, and he says Netanyahu can do what he wants, and everybody else wants the United States to lead, and Donald Trump is not going to lead. Donald Trump, who knows for what reason, is he complicit? Obviously Epstein is involved. Epstein and Israel are joined at the hip. I mean, this sort of thing. He was a Mossad agent. Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. He was there to gather information, and oh man, who's the biggest gatherers of information and get the goods on everybody is Israel. Nobody is better than that. I tell you what, you better run the other direction if Israel wants to be your friend. And Benjamin Netanyahu, of course, he proclaimed Eretz Israel, Greater Israel. Wow. And a lot of people have noticed, I think, in the UAE leadership is very angry. The Saudi leadership is very angry. What's his name? Ben Salman said, Ben Salman, the leader of, anyway, he said he's not so concerned about Palestine anymore, but now he is, after Netanyahu said that. Wow. Anyway, without any hacking, it's come to light that Zelensky has been moving approximately 50 million US dollars to 2 UAE, United Arab Emirates firms, every single month. There's a certain guy that he goes through, and this guy, I guess his compensation has so far also been like $50 million over the period of time for this guy's firm. Anyway, this has been reported first by a Turkish investigative reporters. They even list the names and the account numbers of where Zelensky was sending this money. It's incredible. They put the friggin' account numbers even in the newspaper. And a lot of that money has been used they have to kind of get rid of it. Remember Tom Cruise in that movie, I think it's called American Made? They have to do something with this money. And Zelensky buys properties normally, but I guess he's bought a lot of property in Dubai, a lot of luxury property, like in the Arab Emirates and things like that. One of his associates bought, probably for him, of course, 9 luxury properties in one day. 9 in a day. Wow. Wow. And this information that I just now told you, I think the Turkish company, they got it from these 2 agencies that the West set up, NABU and SAPO, to monitor the corruption in Ukraine. And then, of course, Zelensky, I suppose he knows about this one too, that he was caught. And so he basically nixed these 2 companies, these 2 anti-corruption companies, and then there was riots all over Ukraine, so he had to reinstate them, but of course now they're under his control. So in other words, they're toothless tigers. Let's see. Anyway, the guy who was managing these funds, his name is Andrei Gimyrin, spelled Gmyrin in Latin letters. Andrei Gimyrin. I don't know, so maybe you can find him somewhere. Before the Putin-Trump meeting, Lindsey Graham, of course, has been less verbal about that meeting. Who knows why? But he has warned that if the U.S. does not support Satanyahu, that God will abandon America. Something similar to what Ted Cruz said, which of course he completely bastardized it. He quoted from the Bible, and he misquoted. He put in some different words that I think it said something about Abraham and not Israel. And of course, you have Lindsey Graham and these people, they get a lot of money from Israel. So, and of course they're probably also compromised. So, I don't know if they went to Epstein's Island or they're compromised in other ways. Anyway, that keeps them in power, and that's what Ted Cruz, he tweeted, he said he joined the Senate to do work for Israel, not to do work for America. Wow, talk about that. He didn't say not America, he said to do work for Israel. Wow. So anyway, probably these guys believe that Satanyahu is connected to God or something. And Israel is just now going to push. I told you what, they took over 61% of the West Bank as well, as they're taking over all of Gaza. And they took 61% apparently, and they're going to be expanding big time. And a lot of people are getting pissed off about that because they're going to start increasing settlements again in the West Bank, taking over more of the territory. And there was other things I saw about Israel. They were just, there was like huge bombing raids. They're bombing Lebanon still, and they're bombing Gaza. They're still killing people. They're taking over huge sections of Gaza that they didn't have yet. And there was one thing that bombed. They destroyed an entire city block in 3 seconds. It's incredible. Wow. And Serbia is under severe attack by the West. And it's really getting brutal because the West, the EU, particularly at that time, you know, they didn't have that much luck with Georgia. So now they're getting very, very, very violent in Serbia. And people are going with metal bars, and they're going with, you know, big, thick pieces of wood, and they're really, really going after the police. A lot of police with broken bones. Not that many protesters are hurt because they're attacking them. And you know, I don't know how many deaths, but there is, I think 42 police with injuries, broken fingers, broken arms, broken legs, and some that are more severe. Probably maybe their helmet came off and they got smashed in the head and have, you know, head trauma. I don't have any idea. But they're still going after Georgia, so don't give up yet, huh? Trying to get those Western puppets in there. And gee, it's the EU. Well, guess what? The United States is involved in that too. Okay. And concerning now, I was going to get to this. These 3 British agents, and this comes from Chinese news, because like I tell you, the Russians are kind of mum about this, and the British, of course, want to keep this mum, hush hush, hush hush, say no more, mum's the word. So anyway, these 3 British agents, you know, one of them was MI6, one was a lieutenant colonel, one was a colonel, and that the Russians caught. And I was saying I thought it was in the Donbass area because, you know, the information was a little bit sketchy, but it was actually in some area. There was a center in not near Odessa, but in that direction of Odessa, over there in that area. Maybe Nikolaev. I have no idea. I don't know. Nikolaev, you know, Russia doesn't have control over that either, but I think it was near a port. You know, like I said, it doesn't matter, but it's over in that area. But let's see. Okay, I said that already. The 2 colonels finally confessed, notwithstanding the fact that Russia had all the evidence from their computers. So what they did is the Russians, of course, got into their computers, and they got all of the communications of what these British agents were doing. And so they finally confessed, and they had to confess because they caught them red-handed. And the Russians were basically showing, well, what about this message right here? Look at this. So we got this right here on your computer. This is your email, you know, all this sort of a deal. But what was going on? The results. The British government. Did I say the British government? The British government is heavily involved in the attacks on Russian soil, bombing the pipelines, oil tankers, refineries, surface-to-air missiles stations. I wonder if they were even involved in killing the civilians, bombing the apartment buildings. I don't know. Russia didn't quite put that out yet, but apparently Russia said that these people are not going to be up for trade. They're not going to be trading them for any other, you know, for other Russians maybe that the British have. These guys are too much. Killed a lot of people, did a lot of damage. And apparently what a lot of people are saying is that Russia now has justification to bomb factories in the UK, in England, to bomb these factories that make these weapons that the UK is using on Russia. So that is some interesting information. Anyway, that's about it. I kind of have to rush. I wasn't supposed to be here that long. I actually am going on a bike trip. I'm only halfway there right now. And anyway, thank you all for joining me. I hope I gave you some information that you can use. And join me on the next one. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.